Thanks, Alistair. I had a couple of co-contributors to this talk, and I'll mention them as they come up. I got some notes from them very recently, so apologize, I'll have to read some of it directly to my notes here. The first species restoration I'll talk about is lake herring. This is conducted by Jim Johnson's lab, Tunison, USGS, and specifically, in this case, adult herring were trap netted late November, December in Chaumont Bay. This is the only known coragonid spawning site remaining in the Ontario waters of, or in New York waters of Lake Ontario. Adults were then transported to the USGS lab in Tunison, and they were spawned within 24 hours of being caught. In 2014, they released 2 lots of fingerlings into Irondequoit Bay. 119,000 were released in September, and at that point they were 100 millimeters in length. And 26,000, the remainder, were released in November, a little bit later, at a length of 130 millimeters. They were all released from this vessel here, a DEC boat, New York DEC. They were all marked with a fluorescent marker. This is the 3rd year of release into Irondequoit Bay, and plans are to begin stocking in Sodus Bay next year, a little further east, in 2015. This is also a few slides on some coragonid work conducted by Ellen George and Lars Redstam from Cornell. So this map here represents the number of lake herring eggs, Cisco eggs, that were collected at 29 sites in Chaumont Bay. These were collected between March and April of 2014. The diameter of the bubbles represents the number of eggs that were found. The maximum number found at any site was 12, and the black dots show where no eggs were collected. And gray areas on the map indicate a 3 meter or less bathymetry. There's 3 recognized spawning areas in this area, so it's as labeled there: Johnson Shoal, Middle Shoal, and Herrick Shoal. 38 of the 41 eggs were found between Johnson and Herrick, so they're the dominant sites. Regarding site selection, there's a variety of depths and substrate types, as well as different locations that were identified by radio tagging and tracking adult fish that were presumably spawning. So that's how these sites were selected. You can see here where numbers of eggs were recovered. Appears to be a strong preference for shoal and nearshore spawning areas. And there's a note here that they had over 30 inches of ice, so presumably it was pretty safe to be out there. Cold winter. And also through this work they found that the method of retrieving the eggs, I didn't mention it earlier, but they were cutting a hole in the ice and actually using a pump to suck up the eggs, and then they were subsequently identified as Cisco eggs through genetic markers. I'll talk a little bit about Atlantic salmon restoration work, specifically on Lake Ontario side of the lake. There's 3 strains of Atlantic salmon in production in Ontario, 1 in New York. Thus far, survival and growth of the juveniles is encouraging in the streams, and this is on the Ontario side. However, the returns of adult Atlantic salmon are very low, and they are slightly higher in New York. We finished not too long ago a multi-agency review of the stocking program completed in 2014, and the findings from this review will be implemented in the next 5-year plan, and changes are suggested will be put into place this year, and that report is available online at bringbackthesalmon.ca. Some of those changes that we will be looking into for this year is, 1, simply increasing size of stocked fish. We were already doing that. Potentially reducing the number of life stages, which of course would have practical benefits in terms of cost and operational concerns. Three, and this is specific to the Ontario side, is to determine which strains are best. We're currently maintaining 3 now in the hatchery system. One other recommendation was possibly conditioning the fish prior to release. So that would be something like manipulating photo period, for example, prior to release. Number 5, recommendation to simply review and improve the stocking locations and densities. So improve what we're doing now, but refine it a little bit. And of course, as always, continue to monitor and conduct necessary research.